Hi everyone. Before I start, just like to acknowledge, first of all, my colleagues who are already doing this kind of thing. You can't do it by yourself. There's people in the room that I'm involved with already, and people that I've been playing with for a long, long time, Min, and architects and tradespeople that are already into it. And what I'm encouraging is exactly what you're doing tonight. Get interested. So you guys actually got yourselves here. That's fantastic, because that's how the synchronicity then starts to come in to everything, and you start getting interested in something, and then you get an inquiry about it, and then you start to know where to look and who to contact, or you know someone who might know someone, and then it starts happening.
So I'm going to talk about Regenerative to start with, and then we're going to talk about Whaihanga. So what I'll do is we'll just get into some photos to start with. So you can show you a couple of photos of recent work. We call these handmade earthen art panels. So this was a fancy name for Regenerative. So that's same job, interior. As well as acknowledging you guys, I'll drop a couple of names as well, because these are the architects that are actually giving me the work to do, which is enabling me to keep the products out there, and then their friends and other people come and they see the work, they want to do it, and so on. And so just no rules from there. So Robert Stray Architects, Bureau.
Don't look at the rubbish. I was supposed to clean that up before I started. Just go back to the first one. That's a thin
panel that we've developed. So that's actually a
140 mil thin panel of ram dirt. These ones here are 600 thick. So it can vary. We've done them up to about 900 thick and as thin as 90 millimetres. These are some of the thicker ones. So this is, it's a very strong kind of feel from these. Each panel is around about 8 tonne. It's about a 50 tonne wall. So it's
quite a lot of work involved. I think on this job we picked up about 30,000 buckets and poured them over and put on some. It's getting stuck in. This is wet. You can see in settling. So that's a freestanding ram dirt panel. So once you've decided what you're planting, you look at where the ingredients come from. So our main material that we use to ram is greywacke, which is the basement rock of this entire country. So great narrative. We can talk back about 400 million years. Ram dirt process itself is around about 8,000 years old, and we continue to refine it and bring it into this kind that we're using now. Interestingly, when you have a quarry like this, you can see that there's the stone we all know that gets washed and made into builders' mates, and then levels, they call it brown rock, which is like this, what I would know is the weathered greywacke, and down south I think they call it rotten rock. And so it's a very simple process for us, because we want to know, you can see the variation in there, what we use. We want to take the entire job lot and get it to the site straight away. So we would walk through the hill and the quarry owner, then he would say, okay, Donnie, we want to take it out of here at 150 cubic metres, and so he just gets up there with his digger, takes it all down, puts it through the crusher, we put it on a truck and take it to a site. Well, we try to get as local as possible, so our main ingredient is that one that I just showed you from Whaihanga. This is a Kāhui. This is also greywacke. And this is a limestone quarry. So this particular deposit's been out of the ocean for about 10 million years. The forest has been going for about 80 years. This is Gisborne. We put a facade on the Gisborne airport and used 1/3 blind rock fill with our 2/3 grey wacking. Testing. So we get all our testing from the standards, plus we had a couple of extra tests. So this is called the pressure spray test or accelerated erosion, which is around about 50 years of rain in 1 hour. We spray it onto the wall and then we cut the wall open and look at has water penetrated, and if so, how deep, and are we satisfied. And this is some pull-out testing of a pipeline fixing. So these folk make a fixing for masonry, and here we are screwing it into Regenerative and then pulling on it and seeing how much resistance we get from putting the fixing over in there. In the background here is another product we do, which just looks like concrete. You find of this. We call it engineered aggregate. And just like the picture in the quarry, you get the clean blue stone. You can actually mix that together, put a bit of cement into it, put a bit of colour in it, and ram it to a wall. And it's about the same amount of embodied energy as the other one. As what we right there, this is something like pain. It's exactly what also what we do is we get into making samples things. So depending on the job, we might make a panel for testing, or a thin panel, or a thick wall, and you'll see that a lot of my samples have bits cut out of them. That's when they'd had your erosion testing done, and they've been sliced into when we break it open and all sorts of things. We do that sometimes on job. So the material comes to the job. Called the strong boxes. So these are big strong boxes for the big walls. So you've just seen Bureau of Architects by the way. So this is another type of strong box, but you can see nowadays we get the builders to build the boxes for us, and they're always astounded about how much pressure we put in. So it's a little bit more, it needs to be a little bit stronger than a concrete wall. Otherwise we'll just need it. We ran through that. Add in your mixed interior. This is a job we did with 10 years of police and with the local race region. So here we are, we have sand, bit of cement, usually roundabout, couple of other additives if we're exposing it to weather, and creating the rules of the Auckland standards. So that's our setup. And then we ran you made a little low. Moving about 20 millimeters loose. Take a back down. But you are. I can't let this out there. I think it's like you're on video, Jake. Don't say us. Don't miss. Wait. Take. That's it. Taste it. What I see. What? Out of it. That's it. You can do it. So it's interesting that the work itself is actually quite physically demanding work. Looking all like it's holding onto the compactors. These are lighter compactors. The first ones you saw were a heavier compactor. And it's kind of funny because that energy that you use goes into the wall. So it's all a high energy day, and then the next day it's totally silent and you get it all off, and there's this amazing sentinel that you can feel if you're in blind that way. So then you strip it off, and we do all sorts of depending on your form. which influences the look. So we call this kind of stuff character. Some jobs demand more character. They have different recipes to put lines through and all that sort of stuff. And this particular job, the lines are the formwork lines, which are incredibly accurate right round. I probably call it's going to be about 16 metres long. And it's one recipe, and you see we're trying to ram it without much character so that it just looks like a solid piece of earth. But not particularly but of course, it depends on the architect. We talk, you come to me, tell me what you want, and then we talk about what can be achieved and what's wise and what's not so wise, and see what you do, and then you clean it up after you've stripped it off and cure it. So basically, if you don't know about rammed earth, just think what would the answer be for concrete, and then treat it the same way. So we wrap them up for a little while. Makes a good wall, so that's the start of a fireplace. Going to go in there. So getting back to a little bit more environmentally friendly. So on this particular job, this is existing Ponsonby Road. A brick wall was taken out. So that was there. The architect said, all right, well, why don't we just chuck this on my truck, took it to a quarry in Manukau, crushed it, put it back on the truck, brought it back and rammed it. So this is rammed brick, recycled out of exactly the same building, and this is Daily Bread in Ponsonby Road. Some of you may have seen it. There's a couple of counters there. Taniatua Police Station. So this is using the local material off the Tūhoe land. And so we're getting more and more into that, talking the narrative of where it actually comes from nowadays to enrich in the product. And you can see that there's plenty of character been built into this, and that's just with the ramming technique and the recipes that we use. Some of you might have been to, I think, 190 Great North Road, Fisher and Paykel, where you can see some walls we did inside. These would be some of the 90mm panels, so they're fixed to timber walls behind. And this is the same building in the back entrance, so you can see the cool things you can get with the way you approach your lighting, and how undulating the wall can be. It can cast shadows. And on this particular side, we've got wall lights shining onto the floor. So the look, can be manipulated quite some. What started us off on the thin panel journey, where Jasmax came along and said, can I do thin panels? And my mouth went yes, and my brain screamed no, because the Biobuild minimum at that stage was 350 thick. So I quickly rushed home and made a 90mm panel in my office and went, oh yeah, it's possible, that's weird. And that started us on a real journey of doing thin panel rammed earth and fixing it to walls behind. Sometimes masonry, sometimes wood, sometimes treating it like a brick cavity. There's quite a lot of different ways of doing it. So this is getting into a bit of commercial work too that we wouldn't have done before. This is residence at Muriwai, and these walls are 450 thick, using the local Muriwai soil. Interestingly, all of this is Lawson cypress. So the Lawson cypress frame means Lawson cypress rafters, sarking, and so on and so forth. And sweet chestnut joinery. So when the timber supplier came and said, oh, Forestry Institute of just, cutting down a forest they planted 50 years ago or something to see what this stuff grows like, and now we can buy it. And I'm like, so I rang a few people and they said, don't touch it. It's really badly behaved. And then I did some research. Turns out in America, they used to use it all the time. And the reason that they stopped was a bug was eating the trees. It wasn't to do with how bad the timber was. And yes, it is really badly behaved, unless you give it plenty of time and dry it out slowly.
and then it's actually fine. So we took some to the joiner, McNaughton's, and said, have a play with this, and they went, yep, we can make the joinery out of that. So we did. So it's kind of like just thinking about what you'd like to do and following these leads and doing it. Gisborne Airport, so when we mixed the, this was initially a living building challenge. So we had an 80k radius, no, 100k radius to get our material from. So the Patatahi lime rock was 10 k's and the Matawai Greywacke was 80 k's away. So we got 1/3 of the lime and 2/3 of the Greywacke. We stuck it together, we rammed it, and all it did was made a blank wall a little bit like this bit here. So all of the character that you can see, because they were demanding much more character, is manipulated by how we rammed it. And so that's how we created the particular look on this job. So this is what we call engineered aggregate. This is a test wall, a show wall for a job we're about to start in a couple of weeks. This is going to be developed further as part Rangitoto Island, and this is about a 1.1 square, but it's going to be 7 metres tall and 5 metres long. And so it's like, okay, the colours are right, now what are we going to do? So, you know, some people prefer this kind of look. It's also subjective, you know, with the EA and with the Rand Earth. What do you want? This is actually another EA job. So this is a Peruvian restaurant. So, you know, kind of reds and greens and things. So the architect actually drew all of this on the plywood behind, and then we bring the materials to site and ram to the lines. So, you know, that's all designed for us. That's not our creation. We're just following instructions. The restaurant was called Inca in the new mall in Newmarket. I think, unfortunately, it's closed, but I don't know if the panels are still there. And yeah, this will have a great narrative too, because this is a test wall or a sample wall for the Napier City Council, where we're looking to use local, and local means lime around Gisborne, Napier, Hastings, some wonderful lime deposits. So this is lime from the bottom of Tamata Peak, and it rams really, really well. So you're not really stuck. I mean, certain things don't ram well. You've got to make the right recipe, but there are many different recipes you can ram from to get colour. So sometimes we're doing colour manipulation. If it's not EA, we're doing it with just different coloured sands. And using maybe white or grey cement has quite an influence on it too. And then, so this is the getting interested synchronicity. So I've always thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I didn't have to use cement? And then unrelated, I'm on a Zoom call, and this fella, this Doug that Min referred to, he's got the geo-bind, and it's for hempcrete. And I'm like, Doug, can that stabilise rammed earth instead of cement? And he said, yeah, it's magnesium based, and, you know, we'll be making it in New Zealand. It'll be carbon neutral by 2026, and why don't you chuck some in and try it? And I'm like, cool. So we did, and here it is starting to show itself. ACS, so I'm using products to help with shrinkage and stabilisation, all that sort of stuff. And then I find out there's such a thing called amorphic colloidal silica. And it turns out that's what you can buy in products that are aids for cement to help concrete products behave themselves. The amorphic colloidal silica is a byproduct of taking lithium in New Zealand out of geothermal brine. Who'd know? Until you get interested, turn up on things like tonight and start getting into it, and all of a sudden these things just turn up. So this is where we're looking to at the moment. The product that we use called Plasticure, instead of this we import from the Australians. So cut that out, get the stuff from New Zealand, cut out the cement, use the geo-bind, you know, puts us on a track. And it's just a track that comes to you if you're in those circles. So that's where Lynn was encouraging, come to the conference, talk to people, see things.
It might not be, oh, there's all the answers, but it might even say, oh, I don't really like that, or I'm going to do that. You get a little bit of both, but you're there and meet a whole lot of people to hang out with and eat really good food. And things happen. The end of rammed earth. So I love rammed earth, and it's my favourite thing. And I've been in construction now for 5 decades. And COVID came along, and that question comes up. Yeah, but what are we even going to do? And so nowadays, I'm really sick of compliance and all of that sort of stuff. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll be a subby. So now we're just subbies. We're just rammed earth subbies. But this is one thing that I'm developing with some colleagues, and I'm going to chuck that around the place. So this is, the environmental credentials of this are extremely good. So it's recycled paper pulp, straw. These ones the aggregate is hemp hurd or shiv. It's the same thing, so it's 2 different names. And that's what you're seeing in these particular ones. What did I leave out? Hemp hurd, clay, and the hemp hurd can be substituted for wood shavings as well. So it's 4 ingredients, and all we do is we just make clay cream and stick it all together. And so we're trying to figure out whether we should be making, shall we pass this around? And the colours. So I'm encouraging, everyone to use the names of where it came from. So Kāhui red. A friend of mine's got a farm, and they've got the most amazing red clay. Rewa, which is Māori for New Lynn, or it means the meeting of 2 creeks, New Lynn. And the pink one that's going around there is just 50-50. Rewa and Kāhui red. And he has 3 different colours, totally naturals. And so now we're trying to figure out, or we are figuring out, how strong is it, how we're going to fix it, are we going to pre-make it, are we going to do it in situ? And we've got a couple of really cool architects who are giving us opportunities maybe next year to use it. One's here. And so here's our ingredients. Simple. So on this photo, probably wasn't a hemp hurd, that would be wood shavings. Heart Lawson cypress, one of my favourite woods. With the rammed earth and this sort of thing, you can do it in many different ways of machinery or not machinery. So at the moment when we're manufacturing, it's chuck it in a bathtub and hop in and stomp on it. It's quite a lot of fun. And our work came in. And then you can cast some bricks like the one I got there. Just make sure that the dog's tied up. And that's a sheet, so that's similar to the one that's being passed around, but it's 24 by 12. And that's in my office now. And even though it's super lightweight, when you get enough of it, it actually becomes quite heavy. So that's actually, now that it's totally dry, weighs about 60 kilograms. So it's quite a sheet to pick up. Put a frame around it and call it art. That's what excites me about that stuff. I mean, it can be a brick, it can be a plaster, thicker, thinner. What do you need? I reckon there's a real future for that stuff. Yeah. Playing. Before I got so fully into rammed earth, I just called myself a natural house builder, and I actually did a lot of wood buildings as well. This is the house we made for my daughter. And yes, it's got tannalized-driven poles, and yes, it's got steel bearers. The rest of it is Heart Lawson cypress, rafters, handrail, joists, New Zealand-grown redwood, weatherboards, Douglas fir framing, Eucalyptus pilaris decking, flooring, and then after we've got the best stuff to the decking and use the second best stuff for the flooring inside, we thought the worst lot in a trainer to go to the kitchen maker. And he was just horrified and produced this amazing eucalyptus culinarius kitchen for us. So, it's just a matter of getting interested in what can we use and what's available, and I think what happens is that we don't have a lot of people doing it because you can't get it from placemakers just down the road and then go fishing. It has to be kind of like passion driven, I think. And that's Stephen.
What questions? Heaps. Okay. We'll try run through them quite quickly.
Hi. With rammed earth, is it possible to add proper colours?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
blue, red, whatever, proper layers of colours?
Yeah. So there are certain provisos, like for instance, we can't add a clay colour, but we can get orange sands from Uruguay, and with the ingredients that we use, like a little bit more sand or a little bit less sand in our ingredients, you can influence the colour. Or like in the quarries that I showed you, grey wiki from one quarry was much darker than from another quarry. But
What about colour pigment?
colour pigment,
There's some sort of,
well, you can. You can. So that we get more into that with the engineered aggregate side of things, where we get the colour from Peter Fell and make the Toto Island thing that I showed you. You can totally manipulate that. I tend to prefer not to. My passion is more with the grey wiki than colouring it naturally rather than the engineered aggregate, which is it's exactly the same. We do it all in the same way, but it's just basically rammed builders mixed with colour in it, and you can do a lot of things, and it's twice as strong.
I see you've got an abundance of resources to search grey wiki there. So wherever you go around the country, you've got like grey wiki on that. In terms of, we have engineers in the office. I'm going to show them some of these photos. There's a lot of compaction there. Would you consider using things like Cybex and that as an additive for waterproofing or even strengthening? Because if I show some of these photos to our engineers, we're still reinforcing.
Yeah. So if you're an author, come see me and get a personal lesson. And yes, we do put a product in. It's non-Cybex. It's called Plasticure. You can look it up. Tech Dry Australia, and they make concrete improvement products, but they also, this is one of the reasons we use it, that testing, they make products for earth building, like mud bricks, rained earth, and so we put plastic here to do the Zytex thing. Great product.
Hi. I love rammed earth. I think it looks beautiful, but I just need to ask a question about the formwork. So you said, because there's still things about designing out waste, and you said that often the builders make the formwork and it all looked very new, and I'm wondering if that happens on every job. They just make new formwork, and what happens to the formwork after the job?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. So the driver would be, if you want to be really environmentally friendly, then you need to use pine boards, like the Inca restaurant was pine boards and pine framing pine, and then I can use it until it's scarred too much and gives an influence on the wall that you don't want, and then I can just, with untreated pine, so then we make firewood. So that's the most environmentally friendly formwork I can make.
So you would manage that process?
We can, we can do all of that, yeah. And otherwise we use a plywood, and it depends on the type of plywood, how long it lasts, and how scarred you're willing to put up with it. Has it, we use it a second time, a third time, fourth time.
Just what?
Hi, thank you for your great presentation. I had a question about foundations. What's the most common type of foundation for rammed earth in your the projects you have worked on?
The most common type? So,
in terms of...
Well, it's concrete, reinforced concrete, and it's as wide as the wall, and then it needs to go down as deep as it needs to be stable, and it needs to come out as per the regulations and the standards about how much you need to be above the ground. So 225 or 150 depending on what's on the outside, and ends up 50 mil above the floor, and those sorts of things. But it depends, because they can change. A lot of our panel work, we just take it straight to the floor and we stick it in the ground, all sorts of crazy stuff, because it's not part of the house itself. It's just there looking good, as further up panel, but it's not holding the house up and it's not responsible for weatherproofing or anything like that. So depending on your needs, they can chop and change, but needs a strong foundation if you're putting 50 tonne on. Yeah.
Oh, just one last question.
I'm going to sneak in two, sorry. Two questions. So you talked about 10% concrete binder in it. Cement, sorry,
Stabilizer.
yeah. Yep, stabilizer. Is that does that change depending on the material you use, or is it sort of standard?
Pretty much standard.
About that, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And the other one is, have you experimented at all with waste materials from construction projects already? So demolition waste, for example, concrete or aggregate or...
Crushed concrete is something. The reason that I haven't been drawn to that is it doesn't touch me here. It might make a lot of sense, but it just doesn't. I don't feel it. But the brick did. So the brick would be the best example that I can give you of to answer that question. I thought that was a brilliant idea, and it worked really well.
It's great idea.
Mm.
Cold. One last one, and then we've got to move on to Stephen.
Easier, quick. Will you be making the light earth into any kind of prefab panel form?
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out right now whether the best thing to do is to make it into a sheet and figure out how we're going to fix it. And then Stephen has been at my house coating and doing bits and pieces about whether we want to see that finish or whether we just want it as a technical thing. Yep, so like regulating humidity and stuff.
So like a cladding, like a lining sheet?
Yes, yeah, in place of dip.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Or else we'll lay it straight up. And then we're going to have to do some aggressive drying with dehumidifying fans and those sorts of things, which is actually where I'm leaning right now. More to that.
No.
Well,
Question.